Welcome to Pax Europiana here from Belgrade. This is in front of the Austrian embassy here in Belgrade. That's a very historic building. It was already the embassy of the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy in the year 1914. It was also where the Russian ambassador died in 1914. And it was the place where the declaration of war, the journalists, the diplomats were notified to leave Belgrade in these terrible days of the end of July 1914, and then the World War broke out. Yeah. I want to say the following things. First of all, there is no new World War breaking out because Russia cannot even win against Ukraine in conventional military ways. And so we should not be afraid to confront Russia also united and also diplomatically by sending all Russian diplomats out of the European Union. And this will not lead to World War III, not to nuclear war, because we are not attacking Russia. It will just make a very clear sign that we are no longer accepting Russian diplomats lying and scheming and plotting against peace in Europe. Also in the year 1914 it was very much the Russians who wanted to break up the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and the German Empire in alliance with France, and then also this conspiracy here in Belgrade planned with the backing of Petersburg has led to World War I when they plotted to kill Franz Ferdinand because he didn't commit suicide. He was killed. It was a conspiracy. Who was backing it? It was not just this Apis or somebody. It was certainly backed by influential circles in Petersburg and in Belgrade. If the prime ministers and the Tsar didn't know because there was plausible deniability, yes, that's possible, but it is not that Austria is the only one who carries, and actually not today's Austria, it's Russia very much who carries the responsibility for this deed. That of course then the declaration of war and all these ultimatums was mishandled in the incompetence manner of Austrian foreign service. That's always the case, you know, they are very incompetent, yeah, mostly, yeah. But historically and also today, again, this appeasement with Russia and the Putin visits in Vienna during sanctions and all these efforts now not to invite Zelensky to the Austrian parliament. Austria is a very incompetently led country since it's a tradition, basically, a tragic tradition which led to so much misery in the world. We were also not defending ourselves in 1938, yeah, and all these very unfortunate decisions from July 14, not defending in 38, yeah, the end of the parliament in 44. What else comes to my mind? And yeah, this kind of recommending neutrality to Ukraine after it was neutral when it was already attacked and invaded twice. And now we are also making the most miserable figure after Hungary. And maybe that's a joint Austrian-Hungarian misery which we have here in these policy areas. We are now in the European Union. As Austria, we should behave fully in solidarity with the European Union, and we should not have our own foreign policy of bizarre kind of thinking. And Russia must be contained politically. It was a big mistake we didn't do that already before the First World War, because it was banned for conquest of the Straits, and that was obviously also one of the main war aims, which anyhow everybody knows after Trotsky has released the papers. This was one of the main war aims of Russia in the First World War. It broke up Russia, then we had the whole mess with the communist revolution, and we are still suffering from the inheritance of Lenin, Mr. Putin, who claims he makes a kind of reversal of the Lenin created Ukraine, but in fact he is a KGB agent devoted to the and sworn KGB agent who has basically sworn to defend the inheritance of Lenin, the Soviet Union, and basically in that tradition of ultimate violence he is still today invading Ukraine. But he will be defeated, and I hope it will also lead to a change in Austria, where Austria joins NATO and will be a normal European country. That would be perfect. That's the inheritance of Alois Mock, and that's the inheritance of Erhard Busek, who recently passed away. Unfortunately, I'm sure he was so stressed from these terrors of the Russian invasion that this led to his too early demise. And I call for now Austria to complete the West integration fully, to overcome the ghosts of the past and to be a full member of the West. This is what I devote my work for. That's why I do Pax Europiana as an Austrian, to work for peace, and peace by strong NATO, strong EU, and Austria fully integrated into NATO, and also to understand the history much clearer of Russian aggression in 1914 and Russian involvement already in the Balkan Wars. And I don't want to excuse anything Austria did. We did many things wrong and terrible wrong with terrible consequences. But 1914 Austria might be excused when thinking, because the Balkan Wars was going on already for 2 years. Italy has started in 1911, so there was 3 years of permanent war in southeastern Europe, not just in the West. Yeah? And then Austria entered, and then this combination of Russian scheming led to the full-scale escalation and to the full war, and to the end of one world, and to the creation of a much more difficult, and immediately it led to the Second World War. And still the Ukraine war today is a result of all these tragic events which were spiraling out of control because of Russian efforts to control the Bosporus Straits and to destroy the Ottoman and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire in order to, in their view, liberate the Serbs and themselves get control of the Bosporus Straits. Both did not happen. Of course, Serbia created its own terror regime and invaded and killed so many Albanians and Croatians and Bosnians in the 20th century. And this also has to come to an end here by Serbia being a full member of NATO and the EU and the alliance. And here is this historic place I can just call for peace. Peace is in Europe only because of NATO and the EU, and because of the Americans staying here, and we should be all united in NATO and the EU, full members of the West. This is the message of this Belgrade, Austrian embassy in Belgrade, a place full of tragedy, but also, I hope now, a sign for European Serbia, and I hope Mr. Vučić will lose, and then there is the moment of Western integration of Serbia, a real European Serbia which supports Ukraine and also recognizes Kosovo. This is now possible, and I hope it will come. And I'm sure it will come. The faster the better for everybody, for the Austrians, for the Kosovo people, for the Bosnians, for the Serbs, for the Ukrainians, for all Europeans. Peace in southeastern Europe and in Ukraine is possible by NATO and the EU, and I'm calling for that. And then we have overcome the tragedies of the past, and we can then devote in history explanation. But it's now necessary to do exactly that. For European Serbia, for European Austria, united in NATO. And then we can have a lot of reconciliation effort will be needed to understand what the crimes of our two nations were, and there were many, and then we will be better Europeans together with our American partners, stable, secure and safe in NATO. Thanks a lot. Bye.